Ooh, Anonymous says, I recently found out that my girlfriend watches rough group gangbang porn,
Ooh.
where it's just one girl and lots of different men. Our sex is pretty regular, but also pretty vanilla. She has never
Hmm.
hinted at wanting to try something new with me. Should I talk to her about it? Should I be concerned?
Wow, that is a handful.
Sure is.
So maybe you should start, given that from a female perspective.
So, this was the first thing that I thought of when I read this question. I thought about females and sexual fantasies, and that it's a little more cliche and common, really, that men are the ones who have sexual fantasies and women just kind of go with the flow or are just
Mm.
pretty traditional. Uh, this is obviously untrue. I think it's a weakness in our culture, our sexual culture in this country, that women really don't have an outlet to express their sexual desires. And that doesn't mean that their sexual desires are not there. They're just a little bit repressed. And some women have to find an outlet for that. So perhaps this female, her outlet is watching porn. She's
Mm-hmm.
watching a gangbang porn. She obviously has a sexual fantasy or a fetish or something along those lines of gangbang situations or being dominated like that by lots of men. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
So first and foremost, I think it's important to honor that sexual fantasy that she may have rather than becoming um, intimidated by it or maybe upset by it or offended by it. I think that's the first thing that needs to be established, is that it's okay
Mm-hmm.
that she may have that fantasy, whether you knew about it or not.
Well, while you were talking, I was looking up something. There's a book. It's called My Secret Garden: Women's Sexual Fantasies. It's by Nancy Friday. It's kind of an older book, but I recommend that you and/or your partner, girlfriend, he said,
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, might take a look at this, because this has a lot. This woman went out and interviewed a bunch of women
Mm-hmm.
and put out a book that talks about all of their sexual fantasies. And it's actually very erotic reading, and
It
it's
is.
it's way out there in some respects, but it will give you an idea into the window of what a female, and probably guys too, but this is from a woman's perspective, how they can use sexual fantasies to enhance their sexuality as a being. It's not
Sure.
necessarily something to be afraid of. I think it's obviously concerning to you, and you want to talk to her about it.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is too, if he kind of saw this by accident, she might look at it as he's snooping on her.
Right.
But at the same time, this is a good opportunity for you guys to kind of have an open conversation and talk to her. Now, it may be that she does want to do this. Most likely, it's just a fantasy, and it's something that gets her going.
Right.
And you could probably, maybe you start by buying her this book and say, hey, I was watching this podcast, and they recommended this cool book. They thought it might be something neat, and maybe read some of it, and you'll get a better idea of, like, because some of this stuff is way out there. I'm talking like crazy stuff you would never think of, but
And that's what a fantasy is, right? It's
yes,
it's things that you would never think of doing in real life, and that's what leaves them to be a fantasy.
yes,
Something that you kind of want to do, but it's just going to be kept in your mind,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yes,
If you actually do it, then it's not a fantasy. It's been completed, right?
yes,
So she may not necessarily want to participate in gangbangs or in,
or she
menage
may.
a trois or whatnot, but it may get her going, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. She may prefer in real life to have sex with you, only you, in whatever way you have sex with her, but this may be a fantasy that she gets off on her own, and that's okay. If you're concerned that she is hiding it or not sharing it with you because she is either embarrassed or maybe actually wants to do it, you could still approach her with it and say, hey, I noticed this on your computer. What's going on? Are you into that? And really not, kind of lead it into an
Yeah,
open communication so that she doesn't feel ashamed by it, first of all, and that she can just really express herself with you. I think that if she hadn't shared it with you, it could mean that she doesn't feel comfortable sharing it
yeah.
with you, or maybe you guys don't have that kind of communication where you can talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel honestly, it's up to the guy to provide an environment for a woman to feel open to express herself sexually.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that you haven't done that, but you say you're having regular but vanilla sex. And I don't know why that is. Maybe you guys have never really explored.
Right.
But this is a good opportunity for you to kind of take the lead and say, hey, you know, maybe say, you know what, I've been thinking like I'd like to try a few things. Like maybe it would be fun if we talked about some things we fantasize about. Not that we have to do them, but and then share something of, I know you have fantasies. I know you do. So maybe share something of your own and kind of start moving the ball in that direction. And if you're concerned she might take you snooping as the wrong way, you can kind of open it that way. And eventually she might feel comfortable to share that with you. Because you really shouldn't be afraid of that. If that's something she wants, there's no way you're going to be able to stop her from doing that.
Right.
It's something you should discuss. And most likely by discussing it, the fantasy, she'll feel more comfortable. And then she probably has other fantasies too. And you can role play, and maybe you'll feel at some point that, hey, it's not something she really wants to do in real life, but it's erotic to you that she thinks about these things. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I think talking about it could really open up the doors to a lot of fun stuff for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vanilla sex should not be a thing. So, especially considering you're calling it vanilla sex, that should probably change. Because it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
Let's be granola.
Ooh, muesli.
With some chocolate chips.
Chocolate chips, Rocky Road.